Hey everyone, so I haven't spoken much about competitive multiplayer, mainly because the first few games I kinda sucked, but now that I've actually gotten better and put a little more time into it, I can talk about it a little bit more. So the game mode we had access to in the alpha was Control. Control is a lot like Domination. There are 3 flags that you need to capture. However, instead of getting points from the flags, you get points from kills and then bonus points for every flag that you have when you get a kill. The first to 20,000 points, or the highest score after the time is up, is the winner. If you win, you get 2 Crucible marks, 25 Crucible standing, 210 Glimmer, and 900 experience. If you lose, you only get 1 Crucible mark, 10 Crucible standing, 135 Glimmer, and 900 experience. You can only get 100 Crucible marks from PvP per week. It's unknown if there's a cap on gaining reputation as well. We had access to 2 maps, First Light, which was on the moon, and Rusted Lands, which was on Earth. Rusted Lands was the smaller map of the 2. The flags were set up in a triangle formation. One side starts at A, the other side starts at C. There were multiple routes to every flag, so you couldn't just stare at one doorway and feel safe. There were no vehicles on this map. First Light was much larger and had the Pike and the Interceptor vehicles. They also had turrets around each flag, but most of the turrets were positioned in a way where you could never shoot at someone who was capping a flag. You had to directly engage them. In regards to special and heavy ammo, special ammo was not very rare. There were plenty of chests with special ammo, and they spawn right at the very beginning of the game. Heavy ammo spawns in 2 spots every so often. It's much rarer, but it would always spawn in the same spot. It seemed to be about every 3 minutes. The announcer would say, "Heavy ammo inbound," and then after about 10 seconds, it would show up. You also will lose all of your heavy ammo if you die while you have any, so typically, when you got heavy ammo, you'd want to use it right away. Heavy weapons are very good in PvP, as you would expect. Machine guns will plow through people very easily, and rockets are typically a one-shot as long as you're close. Rockets will also one-shot vehicles, so they are a great way to get rid of them. As we all know, there are no kill streaks in Destiny. Your super is your kill streak. Charging your super was as simple as completing objectives and killing opponents. Killing an enemy grants about 4.3% of your super meter. If you get multiple kills within the same life, you get an increasing bonus to kills. The first gives 4.3% super meter, the second doubles to give 8.6 super meter, and then the third kill and every kill beyond that gives 16% super meter. In Control, neutralizing flags gives 4.3% super meter charge, and capturing one gives 16% charge, so playing the objective is very important for charging your super as well. On Rusted Lands, special ammo spawns in a few spots. The first and second are pretty close to the A side start. The closer one is pretty much right next to the giant pillar by A, and the other one is on the opposite side a little bit farther up by the small tunnel. The next is in the path connecting A to the middle of B and C. It spawns pretty frequently, and I rarely ran out of special ammo. Heavy ammo spawns in the same 2 spots every time. One of them is directly under the A flag, and the other is on the opposite side of the map in the building between B and C. When getting heavy ammo, you will always get 2 rockets, or enough for 1 machine gun belt. On First Light, special ammo spawns down the hallway of the A flag, then once again a little bit farther down. There's an area just past the C flag that carries some, and a whole lot of other places that I didn't directly capture. Heavy ammo spawns in 2 spots, the first being right next to the special ammo closest to A, and by C where you have to jump up into a hole in the building in order to reach it. So Rusted Lands was easily my favorite map of the 2. It was small, so the action was always going, and if you died you could get right back into it. There were a couple of sniping spots, mainly the one that goes from C to the hole in the wall towards A, and then a small area between B and C was okay, but this was an action map. Had no problems with it. First Light was a little big for 6v6, which is why I assume there were vehicles. I do not like vehicles. The Pike was very strong, it had a mounted weapon which could plow through enemies pretty quickly. The Interceptor was even stronger, with rockets that seemed to one-shot everything, never seemed to end, and seemed impossible to avoid. What you're seeing is my first and only time in the Interceptor. Most of the time, the game was decided through the use of the Interceptor, and by a lesser extent the pike, and who was able to hold on to these vehicles for the longest amount of time. It was incredibly frustrating on both the winning and the losing side. The interceptor just feels really cheap. The only way to get rid of it was with either heavy focus fire, a rocket, or a super, but most of the time, by the time any of those things came around, the damage had already been done. I really like how the radar is done, especially because I was a huge fan of the UAV in Call of Duty. Your radar is basically always on, so maximizing your minimap is going to be very important to your success in PvP. What I really like is that your minimap goes away when you scope in, although there are some weapons that give a passive that let you see your minimap while you are scoped in. I'm pretty sure that is mainly on the sniper rifle end though. The whole minimap going away thing means there's a much bigger risk for just staying scoped in one spot. I found it's a lot better to stay unscoped and only scope in for very short amounts of time. PvP is normalized, meaning your level advantage, your attack values on your weapons, and the defense value of your armor do not matter. Everything else does matter though, so all gun stats like impact and all subclass stats like armor do count. The strongest weapon I used was a scout rifle. The one I used had a very high impact. It was able to kill in about 4 shots, but it had a pretty slow fire rate. Auto rifles and pulse rifles were pretty balanced. Sniper rifles always managed to one-shot me, although when I seemed to use them, they never did, so I guess I wasn't using one with very high impact. The fusion rifle is interesting, as it had the capability of one-shotting opponents, but it definitely takes a lot of finesse to use it effectively. You kind of want to use it as a mid-range shotgun. If you're too far, the shots just kind of go all over the place, but if you're too close, you're very susceptible to well-placed shots on yourself. Hand cannons and shotguns, I feel, need some tuning. Something just clicked for me when I was using the hand cannon on the final day of the alpha. I was absolutely wrecking people with it. It really rewards well-timed and well-placed shots, killing in as few as 3 shots. Their clip size and reload time leaves a lot to be desired though. The gun I was using held 5 shots at a time, and it often took 4 shots to kill. That's 80% accuracy to use it efficiently. The reload time on the thing was abysmal as well. I don't mind if it takes longer to reload if I have more shots, or if it was a quicker reload with fewer shots, but a 5-bullet max and a really long reload while having to be incredibly accurate, at least with this particular gun, is too much. The scout rifle does almost the same exact thing. I know not every hand cannon is the same, but most had really high impact, medium range and stability, and low, aka slow, reload times. I'd like to see either slightly larger max ammo in the chamber, something like 7 to 10 shots, or a faster reload. Shotguns need some tuning as well. Shotguns either blasted your opponent into a million pieces or hit them with a spitball. The range on the shotguns is about the length of your arm. You really need to be right in someone's face in order to one-shot them. Anything more than a target being a few yards away would result in barely any damage. Of course, shotguns should be good up close, but I think their range could be given a little bit of a buff to make it actually deal some damage at range. If you're a Call of Duty or Battlefield player, you probably know what I'm talking about. Shotguns in Destiny do not operate like shotguns in those games. They're definitely a little bit weaker. Melee is pretty balanced. All the melee and the hunter's throwing knife will deal a lot of damage, but none of the melee attacks were one-hit kills. You can see here I bring someone from full HP and full shields to about half HP with a single stab. For how easy it is to melee and how frequently it happens, I'm glad this is more of a finisher or an initiator rather than just one-shotting your opponent. As for the classes, like I said earlier, your subclass stats do matter, or at least they seemed to matter. Titans spec'd into armor definitely took a couple more shots to kill, and hunters did seem a little bit faster. With regards to the alpha and what we had available, I think hunters were the strongest, with warlocks in the middle and titans the weakest. Now obviously this is based on what was available to us in the alpha. We didn't have access to all of our skills, so I'll go into each class individually. Hunters are great because Golden Gun is probably the strongest super in PvP. It has the potential to get 3 kills without needing the enemy to be all grouped up. It does take a bit of practice to get used to the activation of the ability. It doesn't activate as quickly as you might think. The Hunter's Swarm Grenade is amazing for zoning out enemies. You just kind of plop it on a doorway or on a flag, and it can easily deter opponents from walking through that area. The Throwing Knife is excellent because it can basically be a ranged finisher, whereas the Titan and the Warlock need to be in melee range in order to finish. The Hunter will automatically use their melee and not their Throwing Knife if they are within melee range of an enemy. Their double jump is really solid too. There's no toying around with propulsion or hovering or worrying about what height you're at or your momentum. You just jump, you jump again, and it works. The Warlock is in second place because their super has some range. That's basically the reason they're better than the Titan. They can safely launch their super from a distance, although if you are quick enough, it's definitely possible to react and dodge out of the way. Their Vortex Grenade was amazing for zoning out enemies, much like the Swarm Grenade, and the Vortex Grenade could kill opponents very quickly if they were standing in it. It is not something to mess around with. Their melee attack when ready, as in not on cooldown anymore, will not one-shot. Like I said earlier, no melee is a one-hit kill regardless of usage. The Titan I felt was the weakest because of their super and their grenade. Their super is very high risk because most of the time you need to put yourself in danger in order to use it effectively. Once Death from Above is unlocked, where you can kind of aim it after jumping, then it'll be a lot more effective, and I'd say slightly better than Nova Bomb. Right now, if you kind of jump in the air really high and slam down, you just kind of go off into your own little world, and it's not very accurate. So with Death from Above, you'll be able to aim it, dive in, and then shotgun anyone left alive to death, or just punch them in the face. Their Flashbang Grenade is pretty good if it hits, but it doesn't last too long, and I found that their Pulse Grenade is not nearly as effective compared to the Warlock's Vortex Grenade or the Hunter's Swarm. Anyway, that concludes my thoughts on PvP. Updated class guides are coming very soon, which will go over all of the subclasses and playstyles we experienced in Alpha, and I'll go over what I think will be the most effective builds within those subclasses. Also would like to shout out to DestinyNews.net. They have been posting some of my videos over there. You can find a lot of great content over there while you're oh so eagerly awaiting my next video, like I know everyone is. But that will do it for me for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.